Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Imperial Guard tactics video. So before we get into today's video, I want to say super huge thank you to Corey James Alterator, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, for sending in these pictures of his Armageddon, Steel Legion and Black Templar sort of combined force. So it's not a typical Steel Legion force, it's actually Armageddon Orc Hunters, which is really cool, and he's used the Kathjan models to show that. And I really like it. I think I've decided that Armageddon is possibly my favourite war zone in the 40k lore. I mean, I have a Steel Legion army, I have a Black Templar army, I've unwittingly, I've got a World Eaters army linking back to the first war to Armageddon. I've even got Grey Knights now. Unwittingly, I've basically collected nearly all the forces of Armageddon. And when I was a kid, I used to have Orcs as well. And I actually, as part of October, just to show my dedication, I bought myself a little squad of Orc boys just to paint up and to reminisce. But anyway, thank you for sending these pictures in. Absolutely fantastic models. Really like the shoulder pads on the Black Templars. If anyone's got any pictures they want to send in to me, please put them on my Facebook page. There'll be a link down below. And just post them on there. And if I think they're cool, I'll use them. So thank you very much, Corey, for sending these in. So, without further ado, let's take a look at today's topic, which is 8th edition. 1 year on, where are we? Okay, so it's kind of an informal video. There's no script or anything. I do a lot of my videos off the cuff, but I often have a few little notes to prompt me and remind me. But this is a little bit more off the cuff, a little bit Black Templar Friday almost, but not on a Friday. We're just going to talk about where I feel 8th edition is, and we're over a year now, just over a year, and pretty much all the armies have been released. Obviously, we're waiting for Orcs, but they're coming, and we know what they're getting now. And we're still waiting for Genestealer Cult. They're like they're some factions. So all but one of the major factions has been released, and we've seen the game change. And what I'm gonna do today is just talk about how I feel 8th edition currently is, how it currently stands, and to compare it to older, the previous edition, and where it stands in comparison to that. So, and some good things I've noticed and some bad things I've noticed. So, I think when 8th edition first dropped, there was a lot of excitement. And I have to preface this entire video by saying I think 8th edition is possibly the most successful edition of Warhammer 40k that I've ever experienced. So many people are now playing Warhammer. So many people that were so disenfranchised with Games Workshop, that were so hateful towards 40k, and have been burned so many times, have come back. And so many new players as well. And I would almost say I read a news article before, a couple of weeks ago, about tabletop games have made a huge resurgence, not board games, but specifically tabletop games have made a huge resurgence, becoming really popular in, I don't know if it's in the world, but in Britain, again, in the UK again. And I honestly think that the driving force behind that may be 8th edition 40k. Now, I'm not saying everyone's playing 8th edition, but the fact that there's this general positive mood around tabletop gaming again has got people into not just 40k, but to try tabletops in general. So there's things like Gaslands that have just come out of nowhere. They're doing absolutely fantastic. Bolt Action, my local Bolt Action scene has slowly but surely been growing. The people are just trying board games out left, right and centre now, but not just board games, but tabletop games as well. And so that's really good. And I would say that 8th edition has definitely, in my opinion, maybe a little bit of a resurgence. Has definitely been a contributing factor to that, to say the least. Now, when 8th edition first dropped, like I said, a lot of people were really excited. And it was this promise to be the edition that would bring balance to the Force. To throw down the Sith. And, we have to basically decide, has that happened? Has 8th edition addressed all of our concerns from 6th, but especially 7th edition? Power creep, absolutely blatantly broken, overpowered armies. Is there any situation now where you'll put your models down. There's no point in playing the game because you definitely won't win. Has all that gone away? The answer is, in my opinion, no. I think things are better. I think things are vastly improved. And I think I heard some people in this. I'm part of this group chat, as I've mentioned before, and this group chat with some quite high level 40k players. And I heard some of them were saying, "Oh, can't wait for 9th edition to roll on," and that made me very angry because 8th edition is a very, very good edition of 40k. I don't think there's these people that will always say, no matter what edition, 40k is rubbish, 40k is rubbish, wait for the next edition to come out. No, I don't think that's the case. I think 8th edition is a very, very good edition of 40k. But I don't think it has solved all the issues we've previously had. And the biggest one, I think, which has come back, which I've talked about previously, is power creep. Power creep is back. It's properly back, and it's no coincidence that armies like Dark Elder are just absolutely rocking tournaments months after their codexes was released. It's no coincidence that Knights have made a huge comeback since the Knight Codex was released. With a few exceptions, each codex that has been released has been either the same power or more powerful than the last, but there's never been less powerful. Dark Elder and Knights being a very good example of this. Both are absolute top tier codexes. There's no doubt about that. Maybe the new FAQ has changed things a little bit, and we're still seeing the repercussions of that. But generally speaking, armies that were released early in 8th edition, like Space Marines and Imperial Guard, have begun to have fallen a long way, and those codexes released later are more powerful. What do I think the cause of this was? Well, I think Games Workshop, they released all the indexes, and for a time, things were good. Now, the indexes weren't balanced. Don't get me wrong, the indexes weren't balanced, but they were all released at the same time, so there was no accusations of power creep. There was merely accusations of unbalance. And the thing is I think that those accusations were unfounded. And I think, unfortunately, they set the tone for the way Games Workshop was going to deal with imbalance in 40k. Okay, so I don't want to go on this too much, but essentially people panicked too early. Oh God, it's overpowered. Oh God, I'm absolutely broken. You can't beat them, blah, blah, blah. Well, no, that's not true. When I had my codex against good players with index armies, I could lose. I would lose games. Guard weren't overpowered. They were just blindsided people so much that people didn't really know how to deal with them. And I think they're a very good example of people crying before the full situation became apparent. Because now, I would say Guard are back, not exactly where they were in 7th edition, because in 7th edition they were possibly, between them and Orcs, the bottom tier codex. But we're bottom mid again. We're back to bottom mid. We had our heyday, we're back to bottom mid. And I think that is due to power creep. So has power creep gone away? No, not at all. Has Games Workshop... So the next question is we've talked about power creep, and that's still in 40k, but it's not as bad as it used to be. But it's still an issue. It's still there. Now, what about unbalance? Now, Games Workshop was doing an absolutely fantastic job of portraying themselves as wanting there to be balance again. And they have done some things which have brought balance to the game. Which have tried to bring balance to the game. So they've brought things like chapter approved out. They've brought things like the big FAQ out. Codexes get erratas and FAQs pretty consistently. Also, it would first appear. But the problem I have is it seems like, again, there's a little inconsistency. And I think, again, it's... When 8th edition first came out, codexes would drop and Games Workshop would release, like, for example, with the Guard Codex, which is such a good example of this whole fucky situation. Games Workshop released an FAQ 2 weeks later. You know. And that's just an example of knee-jerk reaction to the internet community. And I think that's a problem, is the attempts of Games Workshop to bring balance are welcome, and we'd want to clarify that. The attempts of Games Workshop to try and balance the game are welcome, but the consistency that it has been done at is very low. So you have some codexes which get FAQ'd a week. I think the Space Wolf codex got FAQ'd on the day it was released. Something crazy like that. They had some, like, your warlord traits aren't your warlord traits, these are your actual warlord traits kind of thing going on. I didn't fully know, but I know there was some controversy around it. And that the ones in the codex were actually quite good, and the ones that were that were FAQ'd after, like the same day, weren't anywhere near as good. That's what one of the Space Wolf players said to me at the club. Now, you have codexes like that, and Guard, which get nerfed 2 weeks, and it was a hard nerf, 2 weeks after being released. But then you have things like Dark Elder, which just went weeks and months without any significant changes. And even the FAQs that did come still haven't significantly changed it. Talos spam is still really good. It just is. It's just Talos is just really good. Ravages are still absolutely fantastic. It's just, it's crazy. And so we still have imbalance, but at least there's efforts made to balance the game. Now, have we got situations, this is the big one, have we got situations where you have no chance of winning the game? And we're not talking about, if, little Jimmy turns up with his fluffy, Ultramarine army, and then you've got Spike, the tournament player, who's turning up with his absolutely Nova-winning army. We're not talking about that. We're talking about if you have two competitive armies with competitive lists going against each other, are there situations where there's one army which just can't physically win against another? Yes. Yeah. That is the case. It's a great example of this. And some of this is going to raise your eyebrows, but a great example of this is you have Dark Elder versus Knights. Dark Elder, competitive list of Talos, Ravagers, just tears through Imperial Knights like there's no tomorrow. Absolutely tears through it. I've seen it. I've seen it a dozen times. Just an example. One of the best space. If you have a really good top tier Space Marine list, you've got Bobby G in there buffing absolutely everyone. You've got a nice mix of competitive units. I mean, it's not even that. That's the thing. I'm trying to think of competitive Space Marine army. There isn't really one. You might have a Storm Raven or two, but there's some scouts, but. There isn't a really, really competitive pure Space Marine army. There isn't. There are good, solid Space Marine lists, but there aren't tournament-winning Space Marine lists at all. Likewise, Custodes. Custode Vikers with a few Guardsmen attached, even now. It's still really powerful. Really, really powerful. It's very, very difficult to beat. However, again, what I want to say, and I've been quite negative up to this point, but I'm going to start talking about positives. Okay? Because as I preface the video, I think 8th edition is a really, really good edition of 40k. Okay? Because guess what? It's still fun to play. And that's the key. That's the key. Now, a good example of this is I can take my list, like my Steel Legion army, okay, which is chimeras with some infantry in and some Lehman Rusters. Okay, I can take what is considered a fluffy, not super powerful list, and I can take that to a tournament. Correction, I have taken that to multiple tournaments, and I've done well. I've not been tabled. I have given top lists a run for their money. I've seen sometimes where when I was playing Custodes, I realised, you know, if I just made a couple of slightly different decisions, I could have possibly won that game. So what does that say? What am I trying to get across here? What I'm trying to get across here is, whilst the game isn't balanced, whilst there are some armies which can't beat other armies, these are now the exception rather than the rule. No longer do we have things like 7th edition where Imperial Guard, Orcs, Genestealer Cult, Dark Elder. I'm trying to think of some other examples. Well, anyway, those 4 armies at least could not physically beat Tau. No matter what they did, they couldn't physically beat Riptide Spam, backed up by some Eldar bullshit. Couldn't do it. That's gone now. I faced Riptide Spam with my Steel Legion list, and I have beaten it. Despite the fact that they had AP -2 across everything with advanced targeting systems, I still beat it. There was a chance. It wasn't a good matchup for me, but I was able to beat it. And this is what I'm trying to say. In 8th edition, there truly is. There are bad matchups. There are times when it looks like you can't really win, but there's always, it now finally is true, I find, that there is always a chance. The dice can come your way. The Maelstrom cards might fall the way you want it to. Balance, community balance has been huge. Things like the ITC have gone such a long way to providing an incredibly balanced game structure. And I just think that this is where I want to sort of bring this video together. So I've talked about all the negatives in 40k. I've started talking about positives, but this is the end. This is the end game. This is the end of this sort of this brain dump on where is 8th edition now? Where are my feelings on 8th edition now? Okay. Where are my feelings? This is it. This is the summary. We've talked through it now. We've explained. It's not been completely coherent, but all the strings are coming together now in my brain. 8th edition isn't balanced, but it is more balanced than the game has ever been before. And Games Workshop is taking an active role in trying to balance the game. And it's in a place now where it hasn't been in a long, long time. And it's good. And that's it, basically, guys. That's it. Are things perfect? No. Do Games Workshop always get it right? No. But it's better than it used to be. It's more fun than it used to be. I think that's really everything we want from 40k. Now, are there things I'd like to see improved? Yes. The balance needs to be tighter. The consistency with releasing FAQs needs to be better. We've had this mad flurry. I'm willing to accept that in the first year Games Workshop was finding its feet, but now, going forward into the second year of 8th edition, okay, things need to be consistent. We need to have the regular 6 monthly FAQs, the regular 6 monthly chapter approved. These things need to be consistent like clockwork, and they need to be released every 6 months like they plan to, and they shouldn't move away from 8th edition for another, I'd say 2 years at least, 2 to 3 years. 8th edition should last for, in my opinion, as long as they don't break it, should last for a good 4 years. And the reason for that is the core rules are pretty good. The core rules work. Unlike in previous editions where they were overcomplicated and bloated, the core rules work. And so all that Games Workshop has to do now is tweak the outlying material. And if they can do that, then 8th edition will be very, very good. And there's a lot of people out there. I am not a Games Workshop fanboy. You go back and watch all my old videos. I used to tear them a new one. But as a company, they're doing what many companies don't do, and they're actually making a fucking effort to make their product good. And we should, and they're this big corporation, they could look after themselves. Yeah, that's true. But we should support them, continue giving feedback, because they're doing a good job. 1 year on, things are looking good. In the grim darkness of the far future, there's a little ray of hope. So there you go, guys. Bit of a random video, but that's my feelings on 8th edition. It's not concrete. It's not fully formed yet. I know we're a year on, but there's still things that we're learning. Not all the codexes have come out yet. Okay, but the important thing is, how do you guys feel about 8th edition? Do you think it's a fucking train wreck? Do you think it's a waste of time? Roll on 9th edition. Fair enough. If you believe that, you believe that. Are you in the same boat as me, where you think things are better, they can still be improved, but we're in a solid 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10 situation? Things are doing okay. They're not amazing, they're not perfect, but they're okay. They're doing all right. Or do you believe that 8th edition is just amazing, and that they should just stop fucking around with it and just leave it and it's all great? There you go. Overall, I think 8th edition has been absolutely fantastic for 40k and tabletop games as a whole, but they can still work on it. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.